I want to do a little how-to on changing disc brakes. This is a 2004 Mercury Grand Marquis, but this will work for pretty much all disc brakes. They're all set up about the same, especially for the fronts. The backs get to be a little different when changing rotors and stuff because they have a lot of times a drum setup on the inside for emergency brakes, but this will kind of get you through changing brake pads. So you'll take off this bolt and this bolt. That's what holds the caliper onto the bracket and over top of the pads. Once we remove those two bolts, caliper should come off. We'll zip tie it up to the control arm, and then we can go ahead and change the pads from there. So if you do have trouble getting the caliper off once you take the bolts out, really, if you just work it, it should come off. If not though, you can pry. Just be very careful about where you pry. You can pry against the bracket of the caliper. That's the safest place to do it without damaging the caliper or the rotors, if you don't already need rotors. Once you get the caliper off, you'll see the pads sit on these tracks right here, these glides, or tracks. You'll pry those off, pull them off. They should come off pretty easy. They shouldn't be seized or anything. So once you get those off, then you'll remove the tracks here, because your new ones should come with the new tracks for them. So once you get these pads off, take the tracks off, put the new ones on, slide the new pads on. You can add a little grease to the track itself, so the pads will slide on there nice and easy, and then we'll go on to the next step after that. New tracks are on. I added grease to the tracks, or glides. Some people call them glides, tracks. I added grease to those. If you do, you can use, this is just brake and caliper grease. Be very careful not to get it on the rotor itself, but you want those pads to slide on those nice and smooth. That way they don't end up seizing up like these did. You can see this pad was significantly worse than this one. So that grease should help that problem. Alright, once you get the new pads on, your next goal is to remove these slides, the slide pins. These are for the caliper, so these need to be able to move. So you want to take those out and then apply a good amount of grease to those and make sure that they slide like that. So like I said, you want to remove those pins, grease them up really good. As you can see here, I've greased that one pretty good. Then you want to slide it back in and then make sure that boot seats back on it, so you'll hear it and see it click onto there. So once that's on, that pin moves good. This one's a little stiff. I haven't greased it yet, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. It still looks pretty good, but we'll go ahead and add some more grease to it. I'll wipe off that old stuff and then add the new grease. Alright, that one's been greased. You can see it moves much better now. So next, what we'll do is we'll take a C-clamp. There's other ways to do this. This is how I've always done it, never had an issue. I'll use a C-clamp and I'll compress each cylinder. You'll have to go back and forth a little bit because once you do this one will pop out a little bit more. So I'll try to squeeze those down. On smaller calipers like this one, actually, you can probably oftentimes you can put a pad on there and then use a C-clamp and compress it down like that, and that'll do both of them at the same time. Once you get done, you'll want to check your brake fluid, make sure it didn't push it out the overflow or cause it to overflow. If it did, get in, pump your brakes, and then add a little bit of brake fluid back to it. But most of the time you're good. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll get a video of it with the clamp on there, and then I'll show how to put it back together. Alright, so there's the C-clamp on there with the brake pad over top of those pistons on the caliper. As you can see, it's pressed in. So now we'll break this down, take the zip tie off the caliper, and then we'll go ahead and go back over putting it on. One more thing worth mentioning, while you have your caliper off, this is a good time to check your pistons here and also check the boots around here. So like right there, that one you can tell is starting to show some age. So once those start showing age, they dry rot, they end up leaking, and that'll cause brake fluid to come out, and you'll have brake problems a lot of times from that right there. So that means you just need to replace your caliper. So this one will probably need it in the future. All right, the caliper is now sitting back in place. Once you, by squeezing those pistons like I showed with the C-clamp, I didn't really go over that much, but that's to account for the new thickness of the pads, because obviously when you pulled in, you had, you know, that much pad left. Well, once you change it out, you know, the pistons hold those in. So once you change it out, you'll have maybe that much pad. So you got to squeeze those pistons to be able to put them back on, put the caliper back on. So once those are squeezed down all the way, then you put the caliper back on, put your bolts on, put it back together, and you're done. Just remember, you want to do both sides if you can. So if you're going to do one on the front, go ahead and do the other. That way you have equal braking. Once you finish the job and you put the car back down, or the vehicle back down, when you start it up, before you put it in gear, pump the brakes, make sure you have pressure there, so that way you don't end up putting it in gear and not able to stop, because it takes a minute for those calipers to squeeze back down on those pads. Other than that, good luck. Also, this is how I do the video, or this is how I do the brakes. I'm by no means saying that this is the proper way. If you do it at your own risk. Brakes are dangerous. If you don't feel comfortable with it, take it to a certified technician and make sure it's done properly. Also, like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.